Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for swinging on by. Welcome, welcome. Whether you're watching now, later, whenever, I really appreciate it. And hopefully you're not watching never. But then I guess you wouldn't be seeing this. So, hey, everybody, it's Jade. I'm going to be doing astrology predictions on the Western Conference NBA semifinals. It's going to be a matchup for the ages. It's going to be Minnesota Timberwolves and Golden State Warriors. So I'm going to just continue on the predictions here. So I am oh my gosh, I just sounded like really Midwestern there, but I'm a Minnesota sports fan. So that's why I kind of tend to do the Minnesota stuff. But when I do the astrology predictions, I have to stay as objective as possible. I have to kind of leave my fandom to the side. So I'm going to just do a quick little recap of my previous prediction, which was Minnesota Timberwolves and LA Lakers. It was game 5 for the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. Just going to do a quick little recap of that. And then I'm going to pull up the chart for the astrology chart, rather, for tonight's game. That's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Golden State Warriors for game number 1. Tip-off is slated to start 8:30 Central Time, but with the way the NBA playoffs have been going and just the NBA in general, I'm guessing it's probably going to be closer to like 8:40 or 8:45. And when it comes to the astrology of everything, the timing is so crucial and it's so important. So I've been trying to do the best I can with that. But again, thanks everybody for stopping through whenever you happen to be here. Appreciate it. Just going to say hi to Summer Home here. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you as always. And I'm not going to lie, people. I'm not going to lie. I was a couple minutes late because I was busy fiddling with my hair. And I feel like it's kind of all over the place. Not like anyone really cares, but I say this a lot on the channel. I feel like my Leo rising really shines through. So rising is your, or otherwise known as your ascendant. That rules that like how you look, your body, stuff like that. And the Leos, they're always, the Leo's main. It's always the thing. The hair is always the thing. So anyway, my Leo rising is showing heavily right now. But anyway, so I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks so much again. And I will try not to bother and pester with my hair too much. I'm going to try to just like ignore this, like whatever's going on over here. So, when your hair just doesn't behave, but yeah, gotta leave it alone. So anywho's, enough about my hair. Summer Home, again, good to see you. So previous game, let me just put that up here. So, and looking at my nerd notes here, like I said, previous game was Timberwolves Lakers game 5. I did have the Timberwolves winning by 6 to 16 points in the last game, and the final score was Timberwolves 103 and LA 96. And it was kind of interesting, like LA pretty much was ahead the entire game, and then in the end, the Timberwolves got it together. They figured it out, and I think I'm thinking of the right game. Anyway, so the Timberwolves ended up winning by 7 points. So got that right in there. And then for the previous series, my prediction record was the same as the actual series. I was 4-1. So hoping to go all no losses or no wrong predictions, I guess, in this series rather. But I got to do what I can. I'm always learning. So I'm right sometimes. I've been wrong before. So as an astrologer, I always want to be right, of course. But, the learning happens when you make mistakes too. And I'm always learning something, and I always go back and look at the charts and see what I missed and all that good stuff. So, I had mentioned too that in the last game that the Lakers would need like extra fire and extra rage to win, and the Wolves might have had some like hiccups or power struggle due to the Mars and Pluto opposition that's been happening in the sky, which is decimating right now. It peaked last Sunday. But anyway, I did have the Wolves winning, and I had the Minnesota having a better chance to win if tip-off was after 7:27 Pacific. And I think it actually tipped off before that. But anyway, final score there, Minnesota 103, LA 96. Minnesota takes the series, obviously, to move on to round 2. And like I said, I had the Wolves winning by 6 to 16 points, and they won by 7. So, anywho, on to tonight. So, like I said, it's going to be the semifinals for the NBA Western Conference, Minnesota hosting the Golden State Warriors. And there's some interesting drama with this these two teams being matched up. And the biggest story, I think like the biggest thing, is the fact that Jimmy Butler will be returning to the Target Center and will be actually playing in a game today. So he used to play for the Timberwolves, and that really turned sour really, really quickly. Jimmy Butler kind of just wanted out of town, and you know what Jimmy wants, he tends to kind of get, you know. So it wasn't, and since Jimmy Butler has left the Timberwolves, he has been back to the Target Center. But he has not played. He has not suited up against the Timberwolves since he played for the Wolves. And I heard on the radio today that it's been 1,259 days since Jimmy Butler has played at the Target Center, I believe. So that's kind of like the main story for tonight, which is, or just kind of leading up to the series. Obviously, Steph Curry, you know, legend, and just Golden State in themselves, with what's his name, Steve Kerr, the head coach of Golden State too. I might look up a couple of their signs, but with all that being said, that's the matchup. So we shall see. Steph Curry is gonna. Hey Texas, good to see you there. Steph Curry is gonna score 36 tonight. He very well could. He definitely has that capability. And I just like overall, before the series even starts, I think it's going to be a good one. Just as like an NBA and a sports fan, I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's. I hope it's just as an NBA fan. I hope it maybe goes to like Game 7. That would be exciting. Definitely, potentially see that happening, but you never know. When the Timberwolves and the LA Lakers were squaring off in the first series, pretty much everybody wrote off the Minnesota Timberwolves and had the Lakers winning, and turns out the Timberwolves ended up winning 4-1. And then now it's kind of opposite going into the semifinals here. The Timberwolves are highly favored over Golden State. The Timberwolves, I think, are coming off about 6 days of rest. They haven't played. And then Golden State just played Sunday. So Golden State having to travel and then only having like 1 day off in between. So we'll see if that's fuel or, if that snuffs out the fire there. So we shall see. But I am going to pull up the chart here, and I'm going to go through that and share what I think is going to happen. Not going to lie, I parted my hair a different way, and seriously, I said I was going to just stop with my hair, but I feel like I have to get it under control before I can continue. Anyway, hair problems. Okay. So let me see here. People, let me get the chart up for tonight. Anything I just want to go over quick before I pull up the charts? I already said this. Game slated for 8:30 p.m. Central. I'm going to pull up the chart, and I'm going to do the reading for 8:40 p.m. Central. There isn't a huge swing in things because again, with astrology, the timing is so crucial to have the exact timing of tip-off to do the chart. But I don't see any huge shifts or anything between 8:30, 8:45. So fingers crossed the game starts around that time, and then we'll just go from there. But I am going to read the chart for 8:40 Central Time. So I'm just making a guess here that's what time that the game's going to start, or around that time. So with all that being said here, let me share the screen, and I will share the chart with everybody here. And we'll do a little prediction. I'll talk through it here. We'll talk through it. All right, so let me switch that around. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to switch myself around here too. I still have to switch my monitors because I'm looking at the chart, but it looks like I'm not looking at it. That might only bother me. I'm not exactly sure, but alrighty. So let's get this a manageable thing for everybody to see. Let me share with the class. Maybe a little bit further out. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. We're gonna roll with it. All right. So first thing that I'm gonna look at for the chart, or basically, I'll just break down everything that I look at each time I look at a chart. I'm gonna look at which planets rule each team, and then I'm going to look at the moon, where the moon is and how she's communicating with the other planets, because the moon is the co-ruler of every chart. She's very, very important. And then I'm going to look at each team's what's called their fifth house in astrology, and then their 10th house in astrology for each team. The fifth house contains the house of recreation, entertainment, and games. And then the 10th house contains how one shows out to the public, their career, their public image. So we're going to look at those things and then probably some other stuff in between. But yeah, so let's get it going. I am going to start with Minnesota. They're the home team tonight. So the way that I've been reading the charts here, and I'm just going to keep rolling with it. I don't have to get into that. I kind of flipped the way that I'm reading the charts. Last season, when I do all the Vikings games, I do the predictions for the Vikings games. And for the NFL, I have been kind of giving rulership kind of opposite of how I'm going to be reading the chart tonight. But I've kind of found that, especially with like NBA games, when you flip how I had been reading it and kind of do it opposite, I'd been getting more accurate readings. And I don't know if maybe that's just a difference that I'm learning too. When you look at astrology charts, maybe looking at NFL, you read it a certain way, and with the NBA, you read it a different way. That could be too. Like I said, I'm always learning. But so anyway, I'm going to start with the Minnesota Timberwolves and how I'm reading the chart. Since Minnesota is the home team, they're going to be represented by this house labeled number 7 here, which lands in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is going to be the sign that rules the Timberwolves tonight. And then I look for the planet that rules that sign. Venus rules Taurus. So the Timberwolves are ruled by the planet Venus tonight. And then on the flip side, when I go look at Golden State and do in depth there, they're going to be ruled by the first, what's labeled house number 1 here on this chart, which lands in the sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. So the planets Mars and Pluto are going to be the rulers of the Golden State Warriors tonight. And one interesting thing just to note there is Mars is the planet that represents that where war is found, and like rage and anger, but war. And then the fact that Mars is ruling the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors tonight, I found that to be just a little interesting there. Just kind of something that I wrote down in my nerd notes over here. So maybe something to make note of as well. Is that going to give them some sort of like extra edge there? And then, like I said, the Timberwolves are ruled by Venus. And Venus is the planet of love, what you find pleasurable, like flowers, money, where you find beauty and things like that. So, and it kind of makes sense too, just coming into the series. Like the Timberwolves are kind of the little bit of the darlings right now, a little bit of the sweeties here. So a little bit more Venus vibes as opposed to the Mars vibe that Golden State is represented by. But anyway, so I just found that to be kind of just an interesting little thing to notate. All right, so for the game tonight, again, I'm going back to the Timberwolves here. So we've already established that their planetary ruler tonight is Venus. So I'm going to look at what Venus is doing with the moon, because the moon, again, is the co-ruler of the chart. So the moon is at 15 degrees of Virgo right over here. And the moon also rules the people. So I could see the Timberwolves fans and the crowd in general, I could see them being perhaps maybe critical. And especially, this has already kind of been, buzzed around with the return of Jimmy Butler here to the Minnesota Timberwolves, to the Target Center. The Wolves fans might be a little critical of that. They might be just looking for any little thing that Jimmy Butler does wrong, because Virgo, as a sign, it can be critical, but not for necessarily bad things. They're just very detail oriented, very much so. They're ruled by the planet Mercury. So just look for the moon, for the people to kind of have a little critical eye tonight. And that could go for the Timberwolves themselves too. Like if the Timberwolves, start to kind of lose steam, or, they don't have the lead, Timberwolves, the fans in general could be a little critical of that. So just things to look out for, things of note there, because the moon is in Virgo. And if anybody has felt like cleaning, especially, that could also be a theme just in general too, because Virgo rules like cleaning and our health, our daily habits, and pets and things like that. So if you feel like you've maybe wanted to do a little cleaning, maybe a little spring cleaning or something like that, or just kind of getting rid of some grime, just in general, you could be feeling the moon in Virgo. I feel like whenever I find myself like deep cleaning something, the moon's like always in Virgo. Anyway, so the moon being in Virgo, again, look for that potential critical element here. All right. And I'm going to get back to the moon a little bit and Virgo just in general when we go to the Golden State Warriors. But for the Timberwolves, them again being ruled by Venus, Venus finds itself over here in Aries. And Aries is it can be a loud sign. It can be boisterous, and it can have a short temper too. So look out for that with the Timberwolves here. And also with Venus being so close to Neptune, again, Venus is the Timberwolves tonight. Neptune is the planet of illusion, of beauty, of film, music. It can be very seductive. It can kind of pull you under. It can kind of like throw a veil over things. So it could be a little bit like, yes, the Timberwolves are coming off this great series versus the Lakers. They're kind of a little bit favorited now, but is that a little bit of an illusion here? What's really going on? So things of note there. Now, with Venus at 3 degrees of Aries, Venus, i.e. the Timberwolves, Venus and the moon are not communicating in any way. So I'm going to move on from that. All right. Now I'm going to look at the Timberwolves' 5th house of their games, their recreation, sports. Now for the Timberwolves, their 5th house of games lands in this sign of Libra. Libra is also ruled by Venus, the same planet that rules the Timberwolves themselves. So, and there's nothing else in the Timberwolves' 5th house of their game. And again, Venus being very close to Neptune, could this like goodwill, like the Timberwolves being like the up and comer, like, look, we took down the Lakers, we took down Luka, we took down LeBron. Could that all be a facade? Could that all be, be brushed away or be, the veil, the like in Scooby-Doo when they pull the mask off the perpetrator or whatever, like, wow, this is actually who you really are. We could potentially look out for that tonight. Now, the Timberwolves, their 10th house of their career, how they show out to the public tonight. That is represented by the sign of Pisces right here. Now, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, traditionally, modern day ruler, Neptune. So I do think that the fans are going to be excited because the 10th house for the Timberwolves, also, how they show out to the public, they're fans. Neptune, the planet that, the modern day ruler, that rules Pisces, is in the Timberwolves' 10th house of how they show up to the public tonight. Again, being right next to Venus there. And Neptune is at 1 degrees of Aries. Again, Aries is very fiery, can be very boisterous, can have like a short temper, and can be very energetic sometimes if you get the fire lit under them, because Aries is ruled by Mars. So I expect the crowd to be fiery tonight, especially at the start of this game, especially when Jimmy Butler is announced. Anytime he touches the ball, there could be boos, hisses, again, being very critical of this behavior. Now, Jupiter, the traditional ruler of Pisces, which again rules the Timberwolves' house of their career and how they're going to show it to the public tonight. Venus, the Timberwolves themselves, and Jupiter's at 22 degrees of Gemini. Venus is actually working towards like good communication with Jupiter. It's in what's called a wide sextile, and that's smooth. That's easygoing, very easy communication between those two. So again, I think the fans are going to be supportive. They're excited. Timberwolves round 2 hosting Golden State. Game 1. They're going to be excited. They're going to be there. Now, for the Timberwolves, one thing that I don't like for them per se tonight, which is why I think potentially as this game goes on, things might potentially go a little sour for the Timberwolves. And I say that because Saturn is in the Timberwolves' 10th house. Again, how they're going to show it to the public, their career. Now, Saturn is the karmic teacher. It rules older people. So Golden State has a lot of veteran people on their players on their team. If they stick it through, that it could potentially be too much for the Timberwolves, because Saturn will also block things. It will delay things. So again, let's look out for that. And Saturn is very close to Venus, again, the Timberwolves themselves. So again, things to look out for here. Now, before I go over to Golden State and start yakking about them, I do just want to touch on the planet Uranus. Uranus is at 26 degrees of Taurus. Now, Uranus is the planet of surprises, of upheavals. It's unsteady energy. It's unpredictable. And it can be kind of like new wave and like forward thinking. Again, things that you're not going to expect. And it's in the Timberwolves' first house of their physical self, their body as a whole, as a team. Now, Uranus at 26 degrees is right near, and I've mentioned this before, it's right near the fixed star Algol. And Algol is a toughie, okay? It's known as like losing one's head. So I don't want to let's just, keep that in mind. And with the Timberwolves, losing their head in such a way, whether that be popping off, losing their cool, just maybe erratic, unstable behavior. And also Uranus being in Taurus, Taurus rules the neck and the throat. So some sort of like verbal altercation, something or other going on there. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Now, going over to Golden State, this comes into play because Uranus is the lord, or is the ruler, modern day ruler of the sign Aquarius. And Pluto, one of the rulers of Golden State, is in the sign of Aquarius. So it's kind of like Golden State is kind of doing the beckoning for Uranus in a way. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of erratic behavior there, maybe some sort of verbal altercation, but I could see maybe something like that, just something unpredictable. Maybe, Jimmy Butler poking, just for example, poking one of the Timberwolves players, vice versa here, just being too much, where all of a sudden, whoa, we got something going on here. Potential. So now moving over to Golden State. So the Golden State Warriors, like I said earlier, they are ruled by the sign of Scorpio. Now, Scorpio, again, modern day ruler is Pluto that we just talked about. Traditional ruler is Mars. So Mars and Pluto are ruling the Golden State Warriors tonight. So I'm going to look at what Mars and Pluto are doing with the moon, and then the planets that rule Golden State's fifth house of games, and 10th house of how Golden State shows up to the public tonight. All right. So, and for me, I'm more of a traditional astrologer, so I tend to look at the traditional planets, that being, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, but I don't discount the outer planets, that being Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, because they're slow moving. So it kind of takes time for things to unfold, but I don't like to ignore them completely. I do like to look at those. Now, Mars for Golden State, again, that's them tonight. Mars is at 8 degrees of Leo, and still opposing this thin red line here, Pluto. Again, and I say again because this has been happening for a little while. It peaked at, like I said at the beginning of the video, this opposition peaked on Sunday. So now it's losing steam. So that Mars-Pluto opposition, just for everybody in general, you might have been feeling some rage, power struggles, like some sort of like transformation, just in general, just in life, and just potentially just like this built up like anger that's been like bubbling too. So just for everybody in general, the last like week and a half, that energy has really been around. All right. So for Golden State, I don't like that for them, that Mars and Pluto are still in this opposition with one another. Kind of like, are the Golden State Warriors actually going to kind of have a little bit of low energy, like low E? They just played on Sunday and then they had to travel. I would expect them to be more tired if these two planets if this opposition were exact. But again, it's decimating, it's losing, disseminating. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. It's losing steam, basically. But I don't like that for Golden State, that their two planets are just like at opposite ends. All right. So for Golden State, their fifth house of how they play their game tonight is ruled by Mars, because it lands in the sign of Aries right over here. So for Golden State, I don't like that again for them either. Like them and how they play their game, they're just not quite in total alignment. They're at opposite ends here. But with Pluto at 3 degrees, and Pluto is the planet of destruction, kind of like death rebirth with Pluto. Pluto just went retrograde. So it's starting to move backwards now instead of, moving forward, going this way, gaining, going from 3 degrees to 4 degrees. Pluto's is backing it up. So it's for Golden State, it's like, they're trying to kind of like back it up. All right. And we're playing the Timberwolves now. How do we have to reassess and go back and kind of tackle this, as opposed to them coming off the series with Houston? It's going to be different. So we'll see how that manifests itself tonight. Potentially power struggles within Golden State, potentially with Steve Kerr and the players too. They just might be out of alignment there. And just maybe, again, just kind of maybe a little bit tired out, maybe not at their peak, because again, they just played Sunday. Now they're jumping into this game when they had to travel too. Now for Golden State, they also have Mercury and Chiron in their fifth house of how they play games, or how they, of games and recreation. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. Now, for Golden State, Mercury also rules their 10th house of how they show out to the public tonight, because Virgo rules Golden State's 10th house, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So I do think that the crowd is going to be especially on Jimmy Butler tonight. Again, he's returning to the Target Center, returning to the Timberwolves, used to play for the Timberwolves. It didn't end well between Jimmy Butler and the Timberwolves. There's some animosity there. The fans have not forgotten about that. And Jimmy Butler himself is a Virgo. So the moon is in Virgo tonight. Virgo rules the people. Jimmy Butler is a Virgo. So again, I think they're going to be on him. I think they're going to, it wouldn't surprise me either that Timberwolves fans going until the very end, unless things go sour for the Timberwolves, like anytime Butler touches that ball, there's going to be a boo. There's going to be a hiss. Anytime he makes a mistake, a foul, he gets dunked on, whatever it is. Anthony Edwards rolls right by him, whatever it is going to be extra. They are going to lay it on tonight. And with Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, the ruler of Golden State's 10th house of how they show up to the public, in their house of games, being right next to Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's literally a wound that you try your whole entire life to heal. It's a constant in your life, but it never actually heals. It's something always that you have to work on. Always. It's always lingering. It's always going to be there. Now, for Golden State, could they turn it around? And I could potentially see Jimmy Butler having a big game tonight, coming back to where things, he didn't leave things on a good note, right? Probably doesn't want to play here. It's been over 1,000 days since he's played at the Target Center. Virgos, again, they can be very critical. They can be very nitpicky. They're very, very smart. They're very good at communication. And with the moon in Virgo, and the next thing the moon is going to do is make what's called a trine. That's the best positive communication that two planets can have to the sun. And the sun rules who we are at our core. It's our effervescence. I could definitely see Jimmy Butler coming in here and being like, yeah, you think you're going to get one on me? You think that your boos and your hisses is going to stop me from having a big game? Not so fast. Definitely could see that taking place. But I also could see it being a little bit of a struggle, again, because Mercury, the planet of communication, is next to Chiron, the wounded healer. But for the Timberwolves and for Jimmy Butler, for example, it could just manifest itself as being like, see, Timberwolves, I didn't need you. I told you guys were ass and trash, and I wanted out of here for good reason. I don't think he actually said ass and trash, but you catch my drift, right? And then just another thing for Golden State, looking again at their 10th house, the moon, again, which rules the people. She's the co-ruler of every chart. She's in Golden State's 10th house. So I do think there's going to be a lot of chatter. It wouldn't surprise me either if, there were quite a few Golden State fans in the house too. That wouldn't surprise me either. Now, what's hard for me as an astrologer trying to make a prediction in this chart is there's nothing that right now, and that could come back to bite me, and I could be missing it, which has happened to me before. There's nothing that screams that one team or the other is going to take the victory tonight. Like, I've really been trying to look extra here, like what I can see, what's going to give away the winner, basically, for me of this game tonight. And one thing that I do tend to look at when it's not just like straight out and obvious for me is I'll look at the Arabic lot, the part of fortune. Now, the part of fortune is this circle with the X through it. Now, the part of fortune is at 21 degrees of Cancer, and Cancer is ruled by the moon. So neither team's ruling planets are doing anything with the part of fortune. Venus is not doing anything, that being the Timberwolves, with the part of fortune. Mars, Pluto, that being Golden State, not doing anything. Mars is not doing anything with the part of fortune. Pluto, not doing anything with the part of fortune either. All right. So I'm like, man, like, what is it that's going to like really prove to me one way or another that one of these teams is going to win? Like, which team is it going to be? Another thing that I was looking at as well is that Uranus, again, just to touch on Uranus, the planet of upheaval, of surprises, of things that erratic behavior, things that you cannot predict. Uranus is in the Timberwolves' first house. Again, first house rules your physical body. And I've seen that play out negatively before. That being injury, things like that. And I've seen it play out that way, more so in the NFL. And that maybe just could be I've done more predictions and chart readings for NFL games. But that's another thing to look out for. And for the Timberwolves, another not so great thing, in my opinion, is that the sun... Let me put my cursor back over here. The sun at 16 degrees of Taurus is, again, the sun and the moon. That's the next communication the moon is going to make, is like, oh my gosh, the sun, it's so great to see you. Because again, they're going to be in this trine, which is the best, most positive aspect in astrology. So the sun is in the Timberwolves' 12th house of what's hidden away from them, hidden enemies. And it's also in Golden State's gains from their games. So, again, there's another like, okay, which one is it going to be? Because it can be good and bad for both. And now I think I lost my train of thought. I was going to mention one other thing here about the sun and the moon. Oh, yeah. So the sun rules Leo. So, okay, let's look at what house Leo rules for each team. But if you look at that, Leo does not rule any house for either team because it's what's called intercepted. That's when an astrology house does not land in a sign. Leo itself is just engulfed. Okay? Because of instead of well, anyway, so I can't look at that. But if you look, what planet is in the sign of Leo? Mars. Mars is one of the rulers of Golden State tonight. So Mars is basically kind of doing the bidding for the sun. And the next thing the moon is going to do is really good communication with the sun. So is that it? Is that the tipping point tonight? Is that going to be the extra oomph for Golden State to get the victory? Potentially. Now, one other thing that I'm going to look at, and then I am going to eventually make a prediction here, especially before the game starts, and it's 7:45, but the game's probably not going to start for like an hour. But I mean, we could just like keep peeling away the layers here. But again, this has been a challenging one for me because there isn't anything that just like screams one team over the other. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, I could be missing something that's so blatantly obvious right now that I've just like bypassed that I could look at later and be like, how did I miss that? That's definitely happened to me before. But the last thing that I'm going to look at here is what each team owns, their money, their gains. So for that, I'm going to look at each team's second house that rules what we own, our money, what we find of value. And then I'm going to look at each team's eighth house. The eighth house is where you will find other people's money. All right. So we're going to look at the Timberwolves really quickly. And again, thanks everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. So for the Timberwolves, their house of what they own, their gains is house number 2 for them, which lands right here in the sign of Gemini. Now, if you look at the Timberwolves, the part of fortune is there for the Timberwolves, and also the planet Jupiter. All right? And Jupiter is what's called a sextile that is 60 degrees. That's easy breezy communication. That's harmonic. That's good. All right? It's easy. Jupiter is in a sextile with Mercury. And Mercury is the ruler of the Timberwolves' home, their house, their arena. So I do like that. And Mercury also rules, I got both of those things. So it could be big gains tonight for the Timberwolves with Jupiter there in what they own, their money. And also for the Timberwolves, their the house that rules other people's money for them is also ruled by Jupiter because it lands in the sign of Sagittarius. So big gains, from wherever Mercury is, but Mercury is in the Golden State's 5th house of how they play their game. So do the Timberwolves own that tonight? But again, we can't discount the the wounded healer Chiron, the fixed star there. That's just like, I just kind of feel like that's just like Jimmy Butler or just like Golden State in general, just being like the pain in the thorn in the side of the Timberwolves that the Timberwolves just can't get rid of. They just can't handle it. They can't do anything about it. All right. So on the flip side, for Golden State, same thing for them, which is interesting, is for Golden State, the house of their money, of what they own, they value, it's lands in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So if we look at Mars and Pluto, the two planets that rule Golden State tonight, Pluto is moving away from Jupiter. So that's okay. It's like Golden State, you're running away from what you value, what you own, and what you want, right? Or not what you want, what you value and what you own, or what you find value in. But for Golden State, Mars, again, that rules them, is working towards moving towards Jupiter. Like, oh, I'm coming after you, Jupiter. They're working towards a sextile. So it's like there's good and bad for both here. Like, what's going to give it away? And then for Golden State, their eighth house of other people's money is the same as the Timberwolves' house of money. So for Golden State, Mercury is the ruler of other people's money. Mercury and Jupiter are in good communication. But again, Mercury is right by Chiron. People, this has been a tough one. This has been a toughie here. For Golden State, I just really don't like that their two planets are opposing each other. I don't like that at all. For Golden State, I don't like the fact that Mercury, which is the Lord of the Moon today, is in the Golden State's fifth house of their games. But it's right next to Chiron, again, the wounded healer. It's just like maybe Golden State's tired. They haven't caught their breath yet. And then for the Timberwolves, the Venus, the planet that rules them. Venus isn't really doing anything with any other planets here. The only thing that Venus is doing is a sextile exactly with Pluto. Venus at 3 degrees of Aries, Pluto is at 3 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto rules the Timberwolves' house of open enemies, also rules Golden State. So it's like, and coming into before I started the stream, and when I was just looking at the chart before talking it through now, I really was like, I'm gonna have to talk my way through this. And coming in, I was kind of leaning a little bit more towards Golden State. And the thing that brought me to that conclusion, again, because it's just been like this push and pull here, like which team has the upper hand? Which team really has the upper hand here? Because there's good and bad for both. I mean, obviously, I just, went through it all. But the fact that the moon, the next line of communication that the moon is making is a trine with the sun is like the one thing that I have to look at. And since the sun rules Leo and Leo does not represent any house here for either team because it's engulfed, it's intercepted in astrology, so it doesn't rule anything, but Mars is there, and Mars is the ruler of Golden State tonight. So Mars is doing the sun's bidding, so to speak, and the sun and moon are going to be in a very good line of communication. And the sun is also in the Timberwolves' 12th house of what's hidden from them. Hidden enemies are found there. That's just why I'm leaning towards Golden State winning. But as I talked my way through this, I was like, well, there's a lot of shit negatively for Golden State too. But with all that being said, again, it's a tough one, but I am going to pick, hey William, how you doing? It's always good to see you. Sorry I didn't see you earlier. Maybe you just popped in. It's been a push and pull with this chart tonight, I tell you what. But hopefully all is well with you. Again, always good to see you. Thanks for stopping through. Um, Again, just like going through this whole entire chart, like, did I just talk myself into, okay, the Timberwolves can take this one tonight, especially if they're fans? Like, if the fans can stay on the Timberwolves side and can kind of like really stay on Golden State's ass, so to speak, and especially Jimmy Butler, because again, there's this whole history and drama with Jimmy Butler coming back to Minnesota. I do think that the Timberwolves could have the upper hand. But I mean, Steph Curry's been in this position before. You know, Steve Kerr is a veteran coach when it comes to the playoffs and winning championships. Draymond Green. But on the flip side, Anthony Edwards is hungry. The Timberwolves are hungry. They're howling, but they've also been sitting for 6 days. So again, I just have to like use like what I can find extra to make that prediction. Now, it could come back to bite me because again, I went over, there are some things negative for Golden State. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very difficult, very harsh, but same on the Timberwolves. So, but because of the sun being the next line of communication that the moon is going to make, and the moon, again, is the co-ruler of every chart. The moon is in Virgo. Jimmy Butler is a Virgo. There's probably other Virgos on each team that I don't know because I didn't look it up, but we're just kind of looking at like the stars here, the people of mention. I could see Jimmy Butler potentially having a good game and being very critical and like sticking it. But again, on the flip side, Anthony Edwards is a Leo, ruled by the sun. So Anthony Edwards could have a very good game too. But with the sun being in the Timberwolves' 12th house of what's hidden from them, what's hidden away from them, I just feel like it might be a little too much. Like, and the sun rules our ego, like who we are at our core. So if again, for example, if Jimmy Butler lets his ego ride him off into the sunset with a victory, that would be the key tonight. Like if I were Jimmy Butler's astrologer, I would tell him, you take that ego and you kick it up a notch and you put your money where your mouth is and you will take this. And you stay on their ass and you stay on them the entire time. The fans are going to be on your ass, but you don't let it get to you. That can be the thing that leads them to victory tonight. And I also think, again, if I were like Jimmy Butler's astrologer or Golden State's astrologer, I would say, be that fly that is buzzing around them. Be that annoyance. Be that little noise in their ear until they can't take it anymore. All right. So, and again, just back to the Timberwolves too, with their ruler Venus being so close to Neptune. Could this, the Timberwolves being the darling, being the favorite right now, I do declare, I don't know why I'm talking Southern all of a sudden, but Neptune being so close to Neptune, the planet of deception, okay, could the Timberwolves and all the fans have the wool over their eyes right now, only to be pulled away tonight? We shall see. So I'm going to come back to the chat and I am going to just make the official prediction. So I stop blathering about it, but oh, nice. Just popped in. Very good. Yeah. Happy to have you any old time. But with all that blathering being said, and two, just to go back to how I started the stream, that Mars is the planet that rules war. Mars is the planet that represents Golden State tonight. They are the Warriors. I don't know, these little things. But I am going to pick the Warriors to win tonight. Now, by 1 to 7 points. And like I've been saying all through this chart reading, like if it goes the other way and the Timberwolves do end up winning, I could definitely see that. But And yeah, and if I were the Timberwolves astrologer, I would really encourage them to play the game that they know, that they are familiar with. Don't get sidetracked. Don't let the glitz and the glamour, the Steph Currys, the Jimmy Butler, the gossip of it all, do not let that get in the way. That's what I would say to them. And the fans, you know, if they can stick through and they can stay critical, and if they can just ride until the end here, that would definitely be beneficial and definitely be helpful. All right, but yeah, it's just, again, it's this sun Mars, or sun's moon, excuse me, trine that's going to be happening. Again, that's the most positive aspect in astrology, is the trine. And with, the sun ruling Leo and Mars being in the sign of Leo, Leo being the Golden State Warriors tonight, the sun being in the Timberwolves' 12th house of what's hidden away from them, maybe they could be in for a surprise too. That even though the Warriors, have only had like one day of rest and they've had to travel, like they still are the Golden State Warriors. And it's like maybe they're going to catch the Timberwolves sleeping in a sense, because the Timberwolves have had so many days to rest and have not been playing, for almost a week. Could just things to look out for. And, when I'm looking at Golden State, their 12th house of what's hidden away from them, there's no planets there. There is Black Moon Lilith. And that can be a toughie too. That's why, just the thing with the ego, like if like Golden State can really let their ego like drive them in like a good way, a positive way, this could turn out well for them. And I will say too, if the Timberwolves do end up winning tonight, I think it could be because of this Mars and Pluto opposition that's still happening. Again, Mars, Pluto, the two planets that rule the Golden State Warriors tonight, them just not being at their peak, not enough rest, maybe a little unrest between some of the players, not necessarily seeing eye to eye, or with the coaches and the players not necessarily seeing eye to eye either. Just kind of like a power struggle there. So again, these are just things to like look out for, and how things might manifest during the game tonight. So, I mean, I could keep blathering on away until the cows come home, but I think the cows are almost home because it's 8:00 p.m. Central exactly, or so my computer says. So I started at about a little after 7 because I was fiddling with my hair, and my hair is still, not gonna lie, it's kind of been driving me a little nuts the whole entire time, but small world problems, who really cares? But yeah, so we'll see how the game pans out. I'm going to try to stay up and try to watch the whole entire thing, because these later games, I tell you guys, they kind of go past my bedtime. But I'm going to try my best to stay up, because it's just so cool, like as an astrologer, just to see how everything plays out, to see how the chart actually manifests. And if this game ends up starting at because I did the chart for 8:40 Central, so probably start around that time, fingers crossed, because again, timing is so crucial in astrology. But I would say, yeah, as long as this game starts before, let me just say this. If this game starts at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Central or later, I think that's trouble for the Timberwolves, like big trouble. But I don't think it'll start that late. So, anyway, but yeah, because again, the timing is just so crucial in astrology. So, hello, Summer Home. Good to see you again. Yes, good to see you. Thank you. You were the first one too. First comment I saw. So good to see you. Hope all is well. But yeah, so again, I'm going to try to stay up for the whole entire thing, and going to have my nerd notes close. So Yeah, I would just say too, I'm going to be interested. I mean, I'm always interested, but I'm going to be really interested to see how the crowd reacts. I mean, just as a Timberwolves fan myself, I mean, this whole Jimmy Butler coming back, I mean, it's just drama. You know, while he was here, it was just drama. And the way it ended between Jimmy Butler and the Timberwolves is just drama. And so the drama ensues now that he's coming back. Yeah, so just with that, with the return of Jimmy Butler in the crowd, and Minnesota people can hold a grudge. I mean, who can't really? But and then with the moon, also again, which rules the people. With the moon being in the sign of Virgo, and Virgo can just be they're very smart. They can be very detail oriented. They have a list and they're going to check it twice, and they can also have a really critical, and what can come out as kind of like a sharp, like feedback. So I could just look out for that tonight. And with Jimmy Butler himself being a Virgo, and the moon being very close to Jimmy Butler's sun sign, which rules his ego, and I could see Jimmy Butler potentially having a big game tonight. And if Golden State does in fact win, I could potentially see that in some capacity, Jimmy Butler does serve like the final dagger in a sense. So again, just things to look out for, but I'm always excited to see how it plays out. So I'm going to try to stay up for the whole thing. And then I think game 2, I think is on Thursday. I was going to look that up before I came on and wouldn't, I forgot, but I will look it up quick. But I am planning to do every game in this series. So, of course, it's always pickleball day. I feel like it's always pickleball day, right? Picklers out. Got your pickle paddles up. I still want to make a pickle drink for the pickleball players, which is just pickle juice, but it's pickle drink. Maybe carbonated, potentially. Yeah, so game 2 is going to be on Thursday night. So that's the plan, to be back for Thursday to do prediction for game 2. And then, like I did at the start of this video, I'll recap game number 1. So as a Timberwolves fan, I am rooting for the Wolves. Always, always, always. But again, as an astrologer, when I do the predictions, you have to stay objective. You have to. Otherwise, trouble. So, but anyway, so I try to stay as objective as possible. So anyway, but as an astrologer, I hope I'm right with my prediction. As a Timberwolves fan, it would be okay if I got my prediction wrong, because that would mean that the Wolves take game 1, which would be so exciting. And especially just to stick it to Jimmy Butler, because he's coming back. He didn't want to be here. But personally, I actually think that, attitude aside, and the attitude could be part of what drives him. I mean, obviously, but I mean, Jimmy Butler's a really good player. And I think, he definitely has the capacity to kind of use this drama a fuel for his fire. I mean, that's kind of what he's done. So I'm just going to double check that I know he's a Virgo though, but I feel like he's got Scorpio in his chart somewhere. Yeah, September 14th too. So yeah, Jimmy Butler's a Virgo. And another thing, too, why Jimmy Butler, I think, has just been kind of experiencing, just quite a lot of like extra drama as of late, is because the South Node in astrology, which is the nodes of the moon. So the South Node is what's known as the dragon's tail. That's what we're supposed to leave behind. And the South Node is in Virgo right now, and it's very, very close to Jimmy Butler's sun sign. So it's like, some of the stuff that's not working kind of like leave behind. So it can be, it can be a kind of like an important, like a peak time in people's lives when they have the nodes of the moon, whether it be the North Node or the South Node, by like personal planets, which would be the sun, the moon, Venus, Mercury for people. So, and that goes for anybody that has planets in the sign of Virgo. But anyway, so all right, people. So again, taking the Warriors, and just a little funny thing. is Mars, which rules the planet of war, is the planet that rules Golden State tonight, and they are the Warriors. So I've also seen that play out positively. So again, these are like throughout this whole entire chart read, I've just had to look for like any little thing that's gonna give, extra oomph for each team, because it's like nothing is like screaming like Golden State's gonna win, the Timberwolves are gonna win. But again, I made the prediction. And then I'm just looking up Steve Kerr quick too. Like, what's his birthday? Because what's his face? Chris Finch, he's a Scorpio. So Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. So those two planets have been opposing one another. And I don't know any of these people's whole entire birth chart, so I only have to kind of take little snippets. But I mean, I've said this on the last couple of streams, I've just been impressed with Chris Finch, that Mars Pluto opposition, this like power struggle, vibe that's been in the sky for the last week or so, 10 days, almost 2 weeks. I mean, that he has not popped off, that he has stayed level headed, and, he has been a great coach. I mean, for the Timberwolves in general, but just throughout the series with the Lakers, he outcoached, I forget his name, the coach of the Lakers, but yeah. So, and they were talking about that on the radio today. So that's not my like original thought, but I agree with it, I guess, that would make sense too, just with the astrology of it all and, what he's done. But that's been impressive too, that he's been able to stay that like level headed and not pop off, like no technicals, like staying pretty, for that Mars Pluto opposition, that being Chris Finch again, because he's a Scorpio. So for Steve Kerr, okay, so Steve Kerr is a Libra. So Libra is ruled by Venus. So we got the two head coaches, Venus and Mars, going at it today, and just like each team too. Golden State being represented by Mars, and then Timberwolves being represented by Venus. So, and that's interesting that both of the head coaches are ruled by those planets too. So, just interesting things when you just continue to peel layers. But with all of that, I am going to sign off. I plan on being back Thursday to do planetary pregame for game number 2. And again, to recap this one. So yeah, that's the plan as of now. And yeah, I was going to look at the time of the game. I think it's 7:30 or 8:30, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter, but so I'll be back probably around like 6:30, 6 o'clock Thursday, but I'll try to post it a little bit ahead of time with the thumbnails and all that good stuff. But it'd be great if everybody wanted to stop by. But I really appreciate everybody watching today. As usual, whether you're watching now or later, whenever you're watching, appreciate you. And let's see what happens tonight. It should be a good game. Fingers crossed. And I think the whole entire series, I think it'll be pretty good. And are you not entertained? I think we're probably going to be entertained tonight. So looking forward to it. And I hope to stay up for the entire thing. But again, I am taking the Warriors to win tonight by 1 to 7 points. Let's see how it pans out as an astrologer. Again, hope I'm right. Timberwolves fan. I wouldn't mind being around. But anywho, so appreciate everybody. Good to see you. Take care and have a great rest of your Tuesday. And I'll see you next time. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.